Hey, Jay.
Yeah, Jay.
What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. What should we talk about?
I don't know. It's been a while. What should we talk about?
Talk about sports, video games. We could talk about video games.
I know.
Politics, 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 politics. Yes.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Thoughts by Jay Brown segment. Sorry I haven't been recording or anything, and I haven't been on that much because I've had COVID-19 and also COVID pneumonia. So just, yeah, it's been rough. I'm getting a little stir crazy, so I thought I would cover a video that I wanted to cover before the election, but just never got around to doing it. So it's Mr. Beats and his 10 amendments wish list. So yeah, let's have some fun with that.
I'm Mr. Beats, and I'm in love with the U.S. Constitution. It's like my favorite Constitution ever, seriously. However, it's not perfect because things change, man. Sure, people stay the same, but the technology changes, the culture changes, our knowledge collectively changes.
Yes, it all changes. And I'm actually cutting out a huge section here, just so you know. It doesn't serve that much of a purpose to the overall video and what I wanted to talk about. But long story short, it takes a while to change the Constitution, is basically what he's going for. So link to the card will be up here for his original video. So please go give it a watch.
Let's say we are about to enter a time of dramatic reform. Maybe we are, who knows? Well, just in case, here are my top 10 proposed constitutional amendments. Think of it as my amendment wish list. I've been thinking about this for a while, but that doesn't mean this list is any good. It's basically me just having fun.
Yeah, this is all about fun, actually. I actually enjoy Mr. Beats. I actually heard about him from Cynical Historian first, believe it or not. And it's not their voter fraud mail-in election video they did. They did another collab earlier, I believe. Or maybe I just heard Cynical Historian saying it in passing. But either way, I think doing these types of videos are great for everybody. It gives you the idea of thinking of how the process itself works. And also, it gives you an idea of how to come about with law, basically. How to make a constitutional amendment law. So, all right, let's get on to his first one.
Number 10, the right of citizens of the United States who are 16 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of age. Yep, you know it. I want to lower the voting age to 16. 16 and 17-year-olds often work and pay federal income taxes, and they're also legally allowed to drive and can be tried as adults if they commit crimes. Plus, there are plenty of 16 and 17-year-olds who know much more about government and politics than those 18 and older. In fact, I'd argue that the 16 and 17-year-olds of today are smarter than at any other time in American history. Let them have a say. And if you think 16 is too young for the vote, what makes 18 old enough, huh?
Well, that's just it. 16, I think they can be informed, but I don't think they should vote. And I also don't think they should be paying federal taxes yet, actually. To be honest, I don't think that just because you work as an employee, as a minor, you should be paying taxes. Yes, they are driving. Yes, they can be tried as adults in many states. But I don't think that they fully grasp the realities of what voting does. I don't think they fully grasp the idea of an informed opinion about voting. Yes, there are those that are smart enough to know this. It's not a blanket statement that all are idiots or anything like that. No. But these are kids that have to still, if they want to join the military at the age of 17, because they've graduated high school, they have to have a parent's signature or guardian signature. They can't just make a decision. 18, I don't even think that they're old enough really. But if we are going to allow them to join the military, free of their own choice, no parents or guardians, 18 is just fine for that. Because if we're going to ship them off to war, they should be able to go and vote and exercise their rights. The argument that I hate that argument where it's like, well, if 16 and 17 isn't good enough, why is 18 okay? Well, the same is true for why is 21 old enough for alcohol and now tobacco here in Washington State, but it's 18 still good enough to go join the military. Honestly, I think if you're old enough to join the military, you should be able to go drink on base. You should be able to do any legal adult activity that you can't do outside of the base on the base, minus certain things that are prohibited by federal law. But the point being, the overall point being, I don't think these kids should be paying taxes on their paychecks. Let them have fun with their money first. Let them maybe learn how to do it. And if they decide to set aside the money for taxes, maybe to help offset some of the tax burden of their parents, let them do that. That's perfectly fine too. But they should not be obligated to pay taxes. So let's go on to the next one.
Number 9, Congress cannot make any laws that apply to American citizens that don't apply equally to themselves, and vice versa. This seems like common sense, and you're likely surprised right now to hear that it's already not part of the Constitution. Well, it's not. One example of this is that up until 1984, members of Congress didn't have to pay Social Security taxes.
Yes. I totally... not even gonna argue this one. This one is a pretty valid one. We should expect Congress to obey the same laws that we are expected to abide by. And if they can't do that, then, oh well. I guess they don't deserve to be exempt from those laws. So yeah, that's all I got on this one.
The next one is an actual proposed amendment almost ratified in the 1970s, known as the Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA, and I'm just going to read it word for word here. Number 8, Section 1, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Section 2, the Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Section 3, this amendment shall take effect 2 years after the date of ratification. A big reason why it didn't pass is because folks worried that women would lose special privileges, like not getting drafted to fight in a war. But I say those special privileges be expanded to everyone, dadgummit. Is the ERA really needed when laws and the courts have mostly done a good job fighting for women's rights? I say yes, because just because you don't see discrimination against women now doesn't mean you won't see it in the future. Oh, and one more thing. You do see discrimination against women now. A lot of times it's just more under the radar. And look, more rights for women doesn't mean less rights for men.
The ERA. Oh, how do I want to put this? I'm not opposed to it, but there are certain things that he's correct. It didn't pass because of, making it so women would be drafted, because you can't draft men and not draft women under the Equal Rights Protections Acts, things like that. It's nuanced. Do I think that a draft is needed? No. Right now, we don't really need a draft. However, I think if we are going to actually do a draft, everybody that is eligible for military service should be put into the draft, minus those that have served honorably, obviously those with medical conditions, etc. But is there discrimination in the workplace? Yeah, there can be. Do we need to go full force on it with an ERA style legislation? That's still questionable, because again, it's not wrong that it's that it's not happening. I mean, it happens. I mean, people see it all the time. But is it as rampant as people would want it to be? Our feminist movements here in the upper echelons of the world aren't really needed here as much as they are needed elsewhere around the world. And I think that is where the disconnect comes in on the I think that's where the disconnect comes in on the ERA. We have to understand there's a fine balance between equal rights for everybody and then debilitating another group because of this. And I don't think I've read the ERA. It doesn't do that, but it could be used as a way to get there. It's kind of what I'm getting at. So again, I don't have a problem with this one really per se at face value, but I think what we need to do is go back and redraft the ERA and make sure that we understand what it is that we're getting into with it, and not just include women. Start including trans and gay rights into it as well. Tweak the language a bit, because we do need to have other subsections of society that do need protections that are not listed in the ERA. So, yeah, sorry for the rambling on this one.
And here's another actual proposed amendment, nicknamed the Saving Democracy Amendment, that I'm also just going to read word for word here. Number 7, Section 1, the rights protected by the Constitution of the United States are the rights of natural persons and do not extend to for-profit corporations, limited liability companies, or other private entities established for business purposes or to promote business interests under the laws of any state, the United States, or any foreign state. Section 2, such corporate and other private entities established under law are subject to regulation by the people through the legislative process, so long as such regulations are consistent with the powers of Congress and the states and do not limit the freedom of the press. Section 3, such corporate and other private entities shall be prohibited from making contributions or expenditures in any election of any candidate for public office or the vote upon any ballot measure submitted to the people. And Section 4, Congress and the states shall have the power to regulate and set limits on all election contributions and expenditures, including a candidate's own spending, and to authorize the establishment of political committees to receive, spend, and publicly disclose the sources of those contributions and expenditures. This is essentially a response to the Citizens United v. FEC Supreme Court decision, which reaffirmed corporate personhood and made it easier for organizations to spend lots and lots of money on political campaigns. Well, as one of my YouTube viewers wrote, quote, "If corporations are people, then they should be able to receive the death penalty." Oh, snap. I agree. Corporations have way too much power over elections in this country.
Yes. Citizens United. The corporations are people. It's not exactly true, but we'll run with it under his premise here. You're never going to get this particular one passed. And here's why. The lobbyists won't let you, and I guarantee you Congress won't let you. The reason why is because Congress needs the money from the corporations. It's how they subsidize their meager paychecks. I'm sorry, but there is no reason that a federal employee in Congress needs almost $200,000 a year, unless their whole operation, from their office in DC to their office back where their constituents are, is run off of that budget, which I know it's not. So, do they need a lot of money? No, they don't. But in order to run a campaign, they do need money because they have to have ads. They have to respond to things. So, what do we do? I think what we need to do is the framework for a good amendment is there, but we need to retweak it. Like the ERA. There are things that have changed that we have to look at, and we have to look at how funding works and how everything's going to be decided. So, with that, let's just agree to disagree on that one, Mr. Beat. I think you and I, if we sat down, we could actually probably come up with a really good one that could get maybe not all of the money, but at the very least could get the actual donors out there. And that Section 4 just sucks. By the way, that Section 4 is horrible on that one. So, all right. Next one.
For my sixth favorite proposed amendment, I put it in multiples of sixes. Number 6, term limits for Congress and the Supreme Court. U.S. representatives can't serve more than 12 years, U.S. senators can't serve more than 18 years, and Supreme Court justices can't serve more than 24 years. U.S. representatives also serve 4-year terms, with election years being the non-presidential election years.
Okay, term limits. Yeah, we all want that. Who's going to argue that? I don't like necessarily the representatives getting one less term per se, but you kind of can't help that in the sense of if you go every 4 years, like he suggests. Because you'll end up at 16 and 18. So I kind of get it, but I don't agree with it. Career politicians are horrible. I mean, just look at President-elect Biden. There are so many things that are done under his tenure that we have glossed over to elect him, that people just settled. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't have to settle on a presidential candidate. And I shouldn't have to settle on a, how do I want to put it? I shouldn't have to settle on 2 parties either. That's a whole nother argument for a thing. But the term limits for the justices of the Supreme Court, I don't agree with that. I like the lifetime appointment. And here's why. It provides consistency. It's not an elected office. It shouldn't be an elected office anyways. They are there to interpret the law. And now we have had, because of the way Congress has divvied out its own powers, we've had the Supreme Court become a bigger institution than it was originally thought to be. So let us allow for maybe a tweaking of the Constitution to make an amendment clarifying a little bit more the powers of the judicial branch. But I digress here. The term limit for it, I don't agree with. I mean, 24 years, that's a long time. That's a career, after a career on a federal bench and things like that. But it doesn't alleviate what I think you think it's going to alleviate. We also need to look at it from a practical sense. What is it that you're really trying to get at with that 24 years for judges? That's what I need to know before I can fully comment on it. But just, tell me, what do you hope to accomplish with it? The legislature, hands down, not going to argue that one with you. We need that. So, all right, let's move on to the next one.
This opposed to 2 so that they're not constantly running for re-election and could actually focus on, legislation. Look, I get that term limits are not perfect, and more term limits actually might cause lobbyists to have even more power and influence in DC. However, I think most of us are just tired of career politicians, and this is the best way to fight that.
So yeah, I forgot how I edited this up. I started the edit last week and just wasn't feeling down to record. But we need to stop looking at the judicial as an extension of a political branch. Yes, these people do have political ideologies. And yes, they do use them sometimes to base their opinions on things. But they're human. That's what they're going to do. That's what you would do if you were on the bench. That's what I would do if I was on the bench. That's what Joe Schmo across the street over wherever I'm pointing at would do. We have our values because this is how the world has shaped us. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just life. So incorporating term limits for the justices, that's where I have my issues with this part of it. I agree with you. The corruption of the politicians, the lobbyists are probably going to get a little bit more freaky because it's like, oh, I can't have them in my pocket for the rest of my life, but I just have to wait 12 years, or I just have to wait 18 years, or I just have to wait, whatever the term limits were to become. I've often said if I actually do run for, if I were to run for an office federally, that would be one of my key standpoints is term limits. And I don't see why you couldn't do, 12 and 12 for the Senate and the House of Representatives. But 12 and 18 is fine too. 3 term limits, each side. So, anyways, on to the next one.
Number 5. Amendments become part of the Constitution when ratified by the legislatures of 2/3 of the states or by conventions and 2/3 thereof. So basically, this is just making it easier to amend the Constitution. It'd still be 2/3 of Congress or state conventions to propose amendments, but I want to change it from 3/4 to 2/3 of the state legislatures to be required to ratify them. Currently, that means just 33 states instead of 38. As I explained at the beginning of the video, it's currently really difficult to change the Constitution, which makes no sense as the world is quickly changing.
Yes, let's just randomly change the most massive part of our government on a dime because, hey, the world changes quickly. It evolves rapidly. We should adopt as it goes. I'm sorry, but no. This one I'm wholeheartedly going to have to disagree with. 100% I have to disagree with you on this because the point of changing the Constitution is not to make changes that are, it's not to make the changes that the people want. It's to make the changes that the people need. This is why it's so difficult to get bills passed. This is why it's so difficult to get these amendments to go through. If you watch the original video, again, I'll probably try to link it up here. He goes over the years between the various amendments that have been passed, including the 27th Amendment, which was originally created in 1792. So, but the point of it is, if we were to change every time if we were to change every time the world changed, we would have a constitution that is 200 or 300 amendments long. It's going to get to the point where it's going to get so convoluted, we're going to have to rewrite the whole Constitution all over again. Do we really want to keep doing that every, couple hundred years? Do we want to keep doing that every 50 years? Do we want to keep doing it every insert based upon how easy it is to change? I don't think you do. I don't think they want to do it. Because that would, even if it was nothing more than to go through and say, we're repealing all of these, bam, back down to 28, 29, whatever. Just look at what happened with the Volstead Act. with oh, what is it? The 20th Amendment? I'll have to look it up. I'll put which way do I want to go? This way. I'll put it up right there. The point being, I want to say it's the 20th Amendment, where we had prohibition. In less than what was it, like less than a little more than a decade, I think, we repealed it. Why? Because it wasn't working. Yes, the point of the Constitution is to add and remove things that don't work. You know, we've removed the 3/5 compromise, you know, things like that. But the point I am trying to get at is that if we make it too easy for us to change, then we won't have meaning change to the actual Constitution. It won't carry any weight. The laws in the amendments will be meaningless because all it takes is, oh, we don't like this amendment anymore. Bam. Here you go. 2/3 said get rid of it. And that could happen to just about any piece of legislation, not just you know, something as frivolous as, you know, prohibition against alcohol. So, on to the next one.
Number 4, the Electoral College will no longer pick the president. American citizens will directly elect the president. Now, at the state level, there could be additional reforms, like implementing ranked choice voting, approval voting, or score voting. I'm still for federalism here. Let the states still run their own elections. However, count every vote. One person, one vote. And if you think I'm naive about the importance of the Electoral College, you are sadly mistaken. Check out my video here where I take down the antiquated Electoral College.
Don't worry, I will get to that video. I already have it cut up. I'm already working on it. We all know my position on the Electoral College and how I think that it is flawed, it needs improvement, but it's still the better choice than a direct democracy for a position that does not represent the people. The president represents the states. So we'll just leave it at that for now.
My top 3 proposed amendments, collectively think of them as a compromise because they do go together quite well, if I don't mind saying so myself, which I just did. Number 3, the 17th article of amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. Yep, get rid of the direct election of U.S. senators and return the power of appointing senators to state legislatures. Now hold up, hear me out. There is little evidence that proves that the 17th Amendment did anything to reduce corruption in both the U.S. Senate and in U.S. Senate elections. Plus, this is an appeal to conservatives who want to revive constitutional federalism and limit the power of the federal government because guess what comes next?
Yeah, let's not. For all that people complain about the Electoral College system and how it's not a direct representation of the people's will for the presidency, why would we get rid of one? Why would we get rid of it? Why would we get rid of the 17th Amendment? Because corruption? We can get rid of that with the, what was that, the 6th one that you wanted to do, the Saving Democracy? Point being, no. If you want a direct democracy for your representation in Congress, then you don't get rid of it. Period. End of story. Yes, there's still corruption going on. There's going to be corruption no matter what business you do. There's corruption in... We'll stop there. In just about every political form of office, in any form of politics, there is corruption. You cannot get rid of it. End of story. With that said, though, for all that you claim to want to compromise with originalists, why are we going to go back and repeal an amendment that people were okay with? Serious question. Why?
Number 2, the U.S. House of Representatives will have 930 members. Congress may increase the House membership after every U.S. census to account for population growth. Currently, the number is 435, so this would more than double the current size of the House, and of course would also make it so that there would be 1,033 electoral votes, assuming the Electoral College still existed. I know this sounds radical, but you just gotta remember that when the Republic first started, each member of the House only represented 30,000 citizens. Today, each House member represents an average of 747,000 citizens. How can one person truly represent that many freaking people? I mean, we've had the same number of representatives since the 1920s. Since then, the country has grown by 208 million people. Now, if Congress just wanted to pass a law to make this happen, they could. The Constitution does not have to be amended to make this happen. However, I think it is important enough that it needs to be added to the Constitution. Oh, and you might be wondering where I'm getting that 930 number? I just pulled it out of thin air. Just kidding, I got it from an article, this article here by Chris Wilson. It's really good. I've linked it in the description of this video. In the article, Wilson uses math to limit disparity in representation using a basic standard deviation. I kind of know what that means, but the bottom line is 930 ends up being the magic number to make sure that each representative is representing around the same amount of people. One big bonus for increasing the representatives in the House is that it would make gerrymandering more difficult. Speaking of which,
more representation is not necessarily a bad thing. Willy-nilly more representation, though, can be. I like the premise of where this is going. You know, the population does increase. But how are we determining the population increase in the U.S.? The census, yeah. But at the same time, are we only going to count the representation of those that are here legally, that can vote legally in the system? Or are we going to count anybody and everybody? It's a hard immigration issue. And I don't have the answers. I don't pretend to have the answers on this one. The concept sounds good. The concept sounds fair. The problem I have with this is that you're asking Congress to control itself. And they don't exactly have the best track record with that. 930 representatives. Yeah. That's just it's a hard number to swallow, to be honest. So like he said in the beginning, this is for fun. I don't know where to go on this one. To be honest, I don't know where. So I'll look into it and we'll see who knows, maybe it'll make my amendment list. We'll find out. So Number one, the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of political beliefs. I know that probably sounds familiar since it's basically the 15th Amendment, but replacing the words race, color, or previous condition of servitude with political beliefs. Since the Supreme Court has already set precedents on racial gerrymandering, but pretty much said, no, we can't do anything about political gerrymandering, I feel this amendment is the best way we can actually fight to make elections more truly representative. So there you have it, my wish list for 10 amendments to be added to the Constitution. There are others I considered, but I just thought weren't fleshed out well enough yet. Ah, yes, everybody's favorite topic. Gerrymandering. Well, he's not wrong. You can't gerrymander based on race. But you also technically, they're not supposed to be gerrymandering, period. The difference is that the federal government can't technically interfere with states and how they represent themselves. That is the purpose of the 10th Amendment. I would love for us to be able to just say, all right, this block, this block, this block, and regardless of who lives in the block, it is what it is. The point being, when it comes to gerrymandering, we have to understand that we have to deal with it at a state level. It's not a federal issue per se. You in your infinite wisdom have to elect the people in your state that are going to do the best for you when it comes to drawing out those lines. The problem is we, myself included, we are not doing that as well enough as we should. We're all concerned about the president. We're all concerned every 4 years. That's all we're concerned about. Who's going to be the president? Screw the rest of your state. I don't hear hardly anybody talking about their state stuff at all, period. All they care about, president. Maybe Senate seats. That's got to stop. We need to reverse this. And we need to make it so that it is literally we need to make it so it's literally an inverse, where we're focused more locally and gradually expand as we go up. State, from your local city, county, depending on, if you live rural or not, up to your states, legislatures, your state executives, things, so on and so forth. But this was all in good fun. I don't agree that we need an amendment for gerrymandering, period. End of story. It is, hate to say it, it's a states' rights thing, but it is. Those powers that are not designated by the Constitution to the federal government are left to the states for a reason. Because the states are individuals. The states are people. We, the people of our states, need to govern ourselves accordingly. And if we're not going to do that, how good is a federal amendment going to be? So, that's going to kind of end the video for now. As far as that, I do want to talk about kind of my goals going forward. I haven't been posting as much politics. I haven't been posting as much anything really since my move and the end of school. I'm hoping to change that, and I'm actually looking to get more into, again, commentary style stuff, but not hot take. I don't want to do the hot take thing. I've been noticing a lot of my feed lately, because just it happens to be the topic, is blowing up with Katie Joy and Taddy Westbrook and all this other stuff, because it's an interest, So I don't want to do that per se, but I do want to commentate on things that are not just politics. I want to commentate on news. I do want to commentate on things. And I'm working on some other projects on the side that hopefully will pan out. Don't want to get too much, but I do hope to be able to work something out with some people. With that said, keep an eye out on the channel. New year, going forward, I want to get to 1,000 subs. I want to get monetized on YouTube. I think but by December 31st, 2021, I should be able to be at 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. No problem. Provided I can do this consistently. We'll see how things go. But I also want your help. I have other projects that I want to keep separate from the politics. And as I announce those, as those come out, I hopefully you will support me with those as well. So, take care, enjoy your holidays, and keep an eye out for more videos. Oh, also, just to let you know, I am now uploading on Rumble as well. and I'm starting a locals page. If you want to support me, please go check out those platforms as well. I also have Patreon and Subscribestar, which you see at the end of every video. And so please support where you can, when you can. 2020, we all understand, has not been the greatest for people to be able to support as many content creators as they want, because work and stuff has been cattywampus. So anyways, just, if you can, support. The best way to support, like, subscribe, share, tweet out, all that fun stuff. So, and again, check it out, rumble.com. I'll try to put a text somewhere in here, rumble.com, thoughts by Jay Brown, I think it is, and locals.com, thoughts by Jay Brown. So I'll have those going on, and we'll check y'all out later.